It's another Thursday morning, and it's time to talk law on Radio 97. Our resident lawyer, Despina Priala of boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay, with us every Thursday. She shares her legal expertise and provides general advice on the latest hot topics. She has experience that spans more than 25 years, count them, in the area of property and commercial law. She also prepares wills as part of estate planning and litigation. She's with us once again. Morning to you, Despina.
Morning, Wayne. Morning, Brooke.
Good morning, Desi. Morning, Wayno. Alrighty, I love this because we've had another comment or query, I guess, from Jeff in Hope Island. He gave us a call straight after our show a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about buying a home, and you gave some advice to Spina in regards to a checklist in regards to electrical appliances. In general, check everything before you move into your dream home, but electrical appliances was a big one. And then Jeff phoned up and he goes, "Oh my goodness, you would not believe this, but I went into my dream home. We looked at it. We said, yep, let's get it." It was a couple of months later that he actually noticed, once everything was moved in, nice and settled, that all the white goods were completely swapped out for cheaper knockoff type brands. It's so sad, Desi. And I mentioned it to you, and you were like, look, this is happening all the time. It's all about people being a little bit dishonest. So yeah, what did you take away from that story from Jeff and Hope Island?
Oh, yes, I wasn't very happy to hear that. And I don't think I would say that it's happening all the time. I actually
shouldn't say that.
Yeah, it's actually, I've never had a buyer had that problem. But I can believe that it would happen.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about maybe some things that you can do leading up to your settlement that perhaps might prevent this from happening, okay, which are really, really important tips. And we want everyone to listen on that. But when I read the question that you sent me before this show today, it reminded me of this very funny movie called Moving. It's a 1988 movie with Richard Pryor, and I think I've watched it maybe half a dozen times. It's quite funny. But I would probably, Jeff doesn't want to watch the movie now, but because this has happened to him.
PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. But it's along similar lines of what Jeff's talking about, where they go and move to another city and they buy this house. And when they made the offer, everything was perfect. And they were laughing to say, yes, we'll take the cupboards with us. We're taking the doors with us, the pool, ha, ha, ha. We're doing it. You're not going to have it. And it was all a big joke. But when they settled and moved there, the owner did take all these things with him. So there's nothing there. It's not really funny.
God.
But what we want to do is talk about what you can do as a buyer. So the first thing we want to talk about is collating your evidence. Okay. So in any dispute, it always comes down to what you can prove. Right. And it's super, super important, because if you got a claim later on for misleading and deceptive conduct, which I think this would qualify, or that's, the realm that we're talking about, the arena, where's your evidence? Okay. So then let's go back a bit. So what I encourage buyers to do all the time is, when you see a property that's listed on realestate.com or domain.com or whatever the listing is, right, print the listing out. Now, I'm not saying necessarily the listing would say, Bosch appliances or Miele appliances, right? Often they don't. But in case they do, just print the listing out, because what will happen is, once you settle on that, the listing will disappear down the track and it won't be available anymore online. Right? So print it out while you're looking at it, making an offer. So you've got it there on your record, a paper record, right? Or save it on your desktop, whatever you want to do, as long as you've got it as a record, because it might actually contain information, which comes down to the marketing of that property and potentially misleading and deceptive conduct. Yep. Okay, so let's say that the listing doesn't say anything about appliances, right? All right, so what's the next thing? So when you're going through, this is what you would do. I would encourage people to take photos and or videos when you go do that open house inspection. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you say, look to the agent, look, I'm only here to look at the house, and I want to make sure that I can go home and have a look again for myself on the video or the photos, so I can, think about making an offer. Is it all right if I do that? So that's evidence again, for you, so you've got photos of the appliances, you've got photos of anything else or a video, so you can see the quality of what's there. So that's another part that forms part of your evidence if you get down to the end and you find things have been swapped around. The third thing is, of course, is before you settle, always do that pre-settlement inspection. So I'm not sure if Jeff actually did that, or if he did, he might not have realised on the day that there was a swap out, or maybe someone else did the pre-settlement inspection, or maybe the agent did it for him. So it's super important to always do that pre-settlement inspection because you've got the right to do that under your REIQ contract. So why don't you take advantage of that? It's there for a reason. And a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to bother. Yes, you do, particularly if the property is being tenanted and the tenant's moved out. And particularly in those cases, for example, you want to make sure if there's any damage to walls or floors or whatever. So all the tenant's taken something that they shouldn't have when they've vacated. So always do your pre-settlement inspection, and always meticulously look at what is in that property and compare it to hopefully the evidence that you had at the beginning, or your building and pest inspection report. Right. So it all comes down to you carefully going through this process, because nobody else is going to do it for you. You know, so it is up to you as a buyer. OK, and there's no one else that you shouldn't assume someone else is going to do it. The seller's going to do it. The agent's going to do it. No, it is up to you. You are the buyer. Buy beware. That's the way it is. So make sure you take those precautionary steps. Now, what happens if you discover before settlement that there's been this swap out, right? So if you know for a fact and you can prove it, you must tell your solicitor on the day of settlement or on the day you inspect, maybe the day before, and they've got to place the other party on notice that they've materially changed the property, and they've got to rectify that prior to settlement. Okay. And there's a variety of other options. Maybe there's a cost involved. Maybe, you know, they agree to deduct a certain amount. But clearly it's got to be noted on record and all rights reserved because they have no right to change it. So there is a clause in your REIQ that talks about the seller's obligation to use the property reasonably until completion. And they can't do anything in relation to the property that may significantly alter them from contract date to settlement date. So there is that obligation. Right. So if you discover that they've actually done something to significantly alter the property from contract date to settlement, you've got to call them on it. You've got to place them on notice, because you can't wait after settlement. It's too late.
Yeah. And I think the sad thing with Jeff as well is he shared with me that it wasn't, when I say appliances, it wasn't like a kettle and a toaster. It was a stovetop.
The white goods.
And oven. And these things that you think are like almost fixed. And Jeff is actually an electrician, and he goes, well, these days, actually, it's very easy to swap out those type of appliances. And that's what they did. They thought it was quite easy, did it. He didn't have the photo, and it bit him. And he actually went to his pest and building inspector. And I think he even asked, look, did you look at any of this? Do you have any photos? Do you document it? And he goes, no. Jeff's like, oh, geez, maybe they should. And I'm thinking the same. It would be helpful.
Well, see, they wouldn't do that unless there's a problem with it that's quite evident, that there's, you know, something that's non-compliant, and you rarely have that issue, or it doesn't come up very often. And it's really, really unfortunate that this has occurred afterwards. And it's like we talk about what's a chattel and what's a fixture. So when you said things can easily be removed, well, we've had this discussion before about dishwashers. Dishwashers can easily be removed. They're plumbed in, or they're not. Take them out, replace them. And it's absolutely appalling, I have to say, that if this has occurred. And I really feel for Jeff, because I've actually never heard of a case. I've never had a buyer or a client ever come to me with this problem. And I really feel for him. You know, it's very little recourse after the settlement date. In saying that, you know, he should send a letter of demand to the seller. But, you know, because if he's got the evidence to prove that. If he hasn't got the evidence to prove
I don't
that,
think he does.
That's the problem. Yeah.
So what you're saying, I mean, obviously it's a rare thing, but nonetheless it can happen, and you just need to cover yourself.
You need to cover yourself in this day and age. It is unfortunate to say that, and it seems that we're heading more towards that, about checking all of these things off even more. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and it is unfortunate. But tips for the future, yes, collate your own evidence. As you go through the process of making an offer, signing the contract, going unconditional, and then settling. You've got these stages, right? and you need to preserve your rights and protect yourself as much as you can. And certainly do not be backwards in ever walking through an inspection and saying, I want to take a photo of that. I want to take a video of that. I'm here to inspect the property and I'm going to do it right.
Just do it. Yeah. And if you're on YouTube or if you're online, you can go to Priala Legal as well and actually search that segment, chattels and fixtures, when we went through what can be removed from homes. I find that so interesting because I know Jeff's case is very extreme, and yes, you're right. Obviously, it doesn't happen often, but the chattels and fixtures, light fittings, chandeliers, those type of things, I think can definitely happen maybe more often.
Well, it brings up another topic maybe for another day. But and we've talked a little bit about this before, but I can give a whole range of examples of inclusions which need to be listed in your contract, because people come to me and say light fittings. Oh, but that means chandeliers, doesn't it? No, not necessarily. And that can be a very expensive item. If it's not listed as an inclusion, you don't get it.
You move in and the beautiful chandelier is gone.
It's gone. Yep.
Yeah. So really be meticulous about your inclusions in your contract. Super important. And what that often does is flush out things that the seller actually says, oh, actually, I'm not selling that with the property. Oh, we better take it out. And then that is another discussion you see with the parties. So, yeah.
There you go. Well, if you ever want to catch up on more segments, go to Priala Legal. Stay tuned. We got another segment coming up, a hot topic on Talking Law on Radio 97.
Are you confused about legal jargon? Do you need legal advice but don't know where to turn? Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97. Despina, a leading lawyer with over 20 years of experience, will demystify the law and provide practical advice to help you navigate legal issues. Whether it's a family matter, a property dispute, or a business concern, Talking Law has got you covered. Don't miss out on this valuable resource. Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97.